What is up, YouTube? I'm GOAT74 here, bringing you guys week 7 of the PTL. This week we are taking on Bloodcrawler, coach of the Leuven Larvitars. We are going into this game with a 5-1 record, while my opponent is going into this game with a 1-5 record. To recap what happened last week for you guys, we did win last week in a pretty overall good battle. We had some freeze hacks to help us out a little bit, but we did win, and we are advancing on into this week. The good thing about this week is that if we win this game, we cannot go negative for the season. There are 12 games in the season, and if we win, we will be 6-1. Thus, 6-6 would be the worst record. Can't go negative, which would be absolutely fantastic if we are able to win this game. Content-wise, this is going to be a really fun battle because I did mention it a little bit last week. My opponent this week has a lot of new mons on his team, like a lot of Galar mons, and I think that was really cool that he picked up new mons just to try him out for this season. In regards to our matchup this week, it's actually looking pretty good. There are a few things on my opponent's side that are pretty threatening, but I feel like if I'm able to deal with them, it will be fine. I do feel a little more confident in this matchup overall as opposed to other matchups I've had in the past in the PTL. So that is basically a little summary of this video. And without further ado, let's break down his team. My opponent this week has a team consisting of Bearscuda, Dralodon, Mr. Rhyme, Runerigus, Braviary, Hitmonlee, Centiskorch, Flapple, Stonejourner, and Raichu. I expect him to consist of Bearscuda, Dralodon, Mr. Rhyme, Hitmonlee, Centiskorch, and Raichu. The only other mon that I didn't mention there that I think could come is Runerigus, and that's only if he wants Rocks and T-Spikes, because Runerigus is definitely his best hazard setter, and if he wants hazards, then he'll bring that. Otherwise, I expect these 6 to come. These 6 have a great matchup compared to the other 4, and that's why I expect these to come. Instead of mentioning new mons, as I mentioned earlier, he's got a lot of them, I'm just going to mention the old mons because there's less of them. Braviary, Hitmonlee, and Raichu are the old mons on his team, and everything else is a Gen 8 mon, which again, is pretty cool. But in regards to threats, threats are Mr. Rhyme and Centiskorch. Mr. Rhyme beats my offense because except for Cinderace, nothing can really destroy it unless it's threatened to be like O-code. Like for example, Espeon cannot break through it. Rhyperior can break through it, but Mr. Rhyme won't, outspeed 1v1 beats me in that situation. Same with Golisopod. Golisopod can beat it if I still have my first impression intact, but let's say Mr. Rhyme comes in, it has freeze dry, it will destroy me. I have to be very careful about that. And a bunch of all of my offense does not have a good time against Mr. Rhyme. On the opposite side of the spectrum, Centiskorch runs through my defense. I say that because Fire Lash is a really good move on this thing because Centiskorch can use Fire Lash and drop my defense and then use another move on my defensive walls. Like the Rotom, it can use Power Whip with a -1 defense. That's going to hurt. Weezing does not like a -1 Fire Lash. That's really not going to feel good. I have to be really careful playing around that solely just because of Fire Lash. It's a good move. And then finally, Raichu is extremely hard to switch into. Not necessarily my team, it was just the particular one I built for this week was just really Raichu week, at least switching in. So that's something that's going to be a little bit threatening. I could have easily bought Appleton and just made it like not a problem whatsoever. But spoilers, we're not bringing Appleton this week, so Raichu does become a lot more of a threat. And then Dralodon gets a special mention. That thing is a little bit scary if I have stuff go down and I'm down to a few Pokemon. It is going to be a little bit scary to deal with that thing. But luckily, Momentum plus Espeon offense this week looks really good. I feel like spamming Psychic and Shadow Ball in this game is just going to be very helpful overall. And I just need to keep the offensive momentum against my opponent because I feel like I can always stay one step ahead if I'm able to do that in this game. But that is the rundown of my opponent's team. What I am rocking out with this week it consists of Galarian Weezing, Rotom Wash, Espeon, Savali Steel, Rhyperior, and Cinderace. As always, as I had first mentioned, the first mon on the team this week is going to be Galarian Weezing. Galarian Weezing is running the usual defensive set with the Black Sludge and the Levitate ability, moves being Strange Steam, Toxic Spikes, and Defog. Defog was just a last minute thing on there just in case rocks are annoying, though I don't expect to click that. I do expect to be clicking at Toxic Spikes just to get them up. His defoggers are Braviary and his spinners are Hitmonlee and Mr. Rhyme, though Mr. Rhyme does beat me and that's why I do have to be a little bit careful about Mr. Rhyme there. The other two lose the Weezing, so I can try and keep hazards up as much as possible. Toxic is really good for stuff like the Centiskorch as that's my really only way to deal with it with the Weezing, unfortunately. And it's just good spammable move overall. His team really does lack recovery. That's why I wanted all this toxic chip on his team. And that's sort of the goal with this thing. And then Strange Steam is just, general Strange Steam. It's a good move to have on the Weezing. Didn't really need any other coverage move here. And this is a really good switch into stuff like the Flapple. That's why I don't see Flapple coming. The Hitmonlee is my best way to deal with that thing. So if Weezing does go down, Hitmonlee does become a threat. I have to keep that a little bit of a note. And then Runerigus as well. And that's basically Weezing's job, just to get hazards and chip down his team and make sure Hitmonlee doesn't run house on my team. Next up is Rotom Wash. Rotom Wash is rocking the leftovers with a pretty defensive set. Moves being Volt Switch, Hydro Pump, Will-O-Wisp, and Light Screen. I didn't really feel the need for T-Bolt this week, so I threw on Light Screen. I know he has Screen Cleaner, Mr. Rhyme, and I know he has Defog on the Braviary, and a few other ways to get rid of screens as well, like Psychic Fangs, Barraskewda. I felt like it was just in case I wanted it. It was still there at least. I didn't need T-Bolt because Volt Switch, keeping momentum against Barraskewda and Braviary, which is what I'll mainly be switching into, felt like a really good idea. I can deal with his ground type really well because I Will-O-Wisp and Pump, so there's that right there. I can Volt out on Duraludon, which doesn't really appreciate it because it's trash but def. A lot of things. Rotom's really good in this matchup. I do have to be a little bit careful. It can be pressured by stuff like the Centiskorch, the Braviary, the Barraskewda. If it all comes on top of Rotom, it could go down, and I need Rotom to deal with that Barraskewda. That thing is a pretty big offensive threat to my team, but as long as I have it alive, it's not that threatening. And that is Rotom in a nutshell. Third up in our win con of the week, I guess, would be Espeon. Espeon is holding the Choice Specs. This is max speed timid just so I could speed tie the Raichu. I don't usually do that, but again, I felt like Raichu is a little bit threatening against my team, so I felt like I needed to do this. Moves being Psychic, Shadow Ball, Psyshock, and Trick. I click Psychic or Shadow Ball. Psyshock is only there for like Hitmonlee if I need to, or I don't even know why it's there, to be completely honest. It was just another option to have in the end. Trick is just, tricking Choice Specs on something setting up could be always nice. That's a really useful move, but his switch into Psychic just borderline doesn't exist. Centiskorch is a little bit of a problem because if it's like max HP AV, it can take 2. I think that's actually why I put Psyshock on there in the end, because AV Centiskorch could take 2 Psychics. That's what it was, I think. That was pretty annoying for my team, and Mr. Rhyme can take 2 Psychics, but it doesn't take the Shadow Ball as well. And Duraludon is also not a switch into this thing. If it's AV, then I'll know, but I don't really consider it a switch, and because if it's Spit Def. And it was just really good. The only thing's faster in this thing is Barraskewda and Raichu if it wins the tie. Barraskewda never switches in. Raichu, it just gets cooked by it. And his only real good Scarfers are like the Braviary, I think. That's his only good Scarfer. Maybe Mr. Rhyme, but not in this matchup. So I feel like Espeon's going to have a fun time picking apart my opponent's team. Fourth up, and who makes it onto the team basically every week, is Silvally Steel. Silvally Steel is a good pivot this week with a little bit of attack. Moves being U-Turn, Multi-Attack, Rock Slide, and Ice Beam. U-Turn over Parting Shot, and not to trigger the Braviary's Defiant, and I didn't really need the minus attacking anything this week. This is my main switch into Mr. Rhyme and the Duraludon. Can't really touch Duraludon too much, which is a little bit scary, but Ice Beam is doing at least like 35-ish%, and that's not bad. It's my best switch into Raichu, even though it's not the greatest switch into Raichu. I'm well aware of that. But I feel like this would be a good pivot early game, as I usually use Silvally anyway, get some damage off. Again, his team really does lack recovery, so I feel like if I can get some chip with Silvally, it'll be really nice. It'll keep an offensive Duraludon and Mr. Rhyme intact, as well as stuff like a Flapple. It's good against that as well. Again, don't really expect that to come. Fifth up is Rhyperior. Rhyperior is holding the leftovers with the moves Stealth Rock, Sub, Earthquake, and Rock Blast. Rhyperior behind a sub is very deadly for my opponent. Earthquake, Rock Blast is so good against my opponent. The only thing that takes these hits are Runerigus, basically. That's another reason I could see it coming. But if I get up a free sub behind anything that I mentioned earlier, like the 6 months I mentioned earlier, if you remember, then it gets a kill guaranteed. Rock and Ground Spam was just stupid good. Even Flapple doesn't like taking Rock Blast. I'll do like 60 with 3 hits. And I feel like that was really good to have, and I felt like I needed Rocks on this team just because he's got a decent amount of Rock weak Mons, particularly the Centiskorch and Mr. Rhyme, which are pretty scary against my team. So I felt like I would need that in the end. And sub was just to avoid, again, super effective hits like from the Barraskewda or from the Hitmonlee or whatever. You get the gist. And Power Whip from Centiskorch as well. I do love that. It only does like 60%, maybe 70%. But that is going to be Rhyperior, and then finally we have Cinderace. This is an interesting set. Cinderace is holding nothing with the Power Ball, Acrobatics, U-Turn, and Sucker Punch. I originally had Vanillix on the team, but again, I felt like Centiskorch was a problem, so I threw Cinderace on the team instead. And I was thinking of a way to hit this thing, and I almost ran a Double Edge, but I was like, I don't really need an item. Boots are nice, but I don't need it. So I'm just going to take the item off and run Acrobatics, and this is going to be my bootleg way to deal with the Centiskorch. If this works, I'll be very happy. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Powerball is very spammable against basically everything on my opponent's team except for the Stone Joiner and I guess Runerigus. Stone Joiner, again, don't expect it to come. If Runerigus comes, I can U-turn out, and I have good ways to deal with that thing. And Cinderace is just always good in general. It sucks I wasn't able to fit Vanillix on this team, which it was originally, but I took it off. I still feel like Cinderace is going to put in some decent work here. And that is going to be the 6 mons I am bringing this week. I'm very excited to use the Cinderace and the Espeon this week, and hopefully Rhyperior gets a kill because I'm excited to use like the subset. I don't really use that too often. But we're going to head over to Pokemon Showdown, and we're going to watch the battle. Alright, we have arrived at Pokemon Showdown, and my opponent did not bring the Raichu, so that is fantastic to see. He did bring the Braviary though. That means that Rotom does have more work cut out for it, so I have to be careful using that thing. It looks pretty pressured. In regards to lead, Galarian Weezing isn't doing too much in this game, so if I can get up against something like Centiskorch, I can get a T-Spike off. Unfortunately, he does leave with Mr. Rime, so I actually can't stay in this situation. I don't want to lose my thing turn 1. As Mr. Rime does have Psychic, and he clicks it, and that is hella specs. So I'm going to keep that in the back of my mind. That's actually a little bit scary for my team, as I just U-turn out, not expecting my opponent to stay in. As he goes on to Centiskorch, and now here I get to go out in the Cinderace and click my Acrobatics, and hopefully he does stay in. And he does, which is fantastic. Turn 3, I get this Acrobatics off, and that is really big because now Espeon is a whole lot better in this game. I'm not even sure if this thing was ever AV, I never found out, but the fact that I just killed off Centiskorch this early in the game means that Espeon is much more spammable with Psychic, but I'm so happy that worked out. I know this Barraskewda is a threat, so I'm going to switch out, and he does catch me with this double. I went on the Weezing because I need Rotom for late game, as this time I stay in and he still clicks Psychic, so that sucks for me, but Weezing wasn't too important in this game. I can go back out to Cinderace and click U-turn, again not expecting my opponent to stay in. Mr. Rime is very good in this game, so I do U-turn out there. And now I can go out to Rhyperior. I could go out into Rotom, but I want to get my rocks up because his only defogger is Braviary, and I don't think Braviary has defog. And spin on Mr. Rime, but now knowing that Mr. Rime is specs, I don't think he's going to want to be locked in this rapid spin. So I'm keeping that in the back of my mind. This thing does have Iron Defense, which is a little bit scary considering I am in with my Rhyperior here. I just throw up the rocks right now just to have him up, as he's going to click Earthquake and not Body Press for whatever reason. But that is quite fine. All I need is a little bit of chip on this thing because I know Espeon's Shadow Ball does, I think it was like 80% min or 70, it was 78% min if it's just max HP. So I need to get it around under 80 basically. It's what the goal I have right now. So I'm just going to spam Earthquake until I die here. Which fortunately he doesn't keep setting up Iron Defenses and he just kills me off here, which is pretty nice. With the leftovers, he is going to be up to 78, so if he is max HP, it's never going to be a roll, but if he does have Spidef, then it is going to be a roll. So there's a big turn as we kill the Runerigus. So that's pretty good. As I just said, if he had no Spidef, then that did not matter, but if he did, then I apologize. I got a roll. It still would have been in my favor, but it was still, like, nonetheless, because Espeon is really good in this matchup still. He brings up Barraskewda, I have Rotom, and now I can go out into it. I don't really fear anything. If this thing's banded, it could be scary, but he just clicks Liquidation, and he's Life Orb, so that's good for me. I can keep up the momentum now by clicking Volt Switch because it kills this thing, and if he switches out, like he does, into Duraludon, I can keep the momentum up as he Volt Switch, and that is definitely not Assault Vest. And I'm going to go out into Silvally. I could go out into Cinderace, but I felt like this was a little bit of a better play overall, just to chip this thing down a bit, as I do go for Ice Beam. I do 33, which is pretty nice, as this thing is also Iron Defense, which I was not expecting this thing to be Iron Defense, but hey, here we are. I do get another hit off with Ice Beam, which is pretty nice. I do crit him, which that helps me a bit. Apologize for that, as he does knock me out with Body Press. It's not really a big deal considering I'm about to come in with Espeon, and even without the crit, Espeon Psychic will be able to knock out the Duraludon, as that is the button I am going to click. And if you want to go out to Mr. Rime, he will take the Rocks damage and the Psychic. I don't think he'd like that. So Duraludon goes down. Now he goes out to Mr. Rime, and this is a pretty big turn. This is really tough. I go into Cinderace because I feel like Espeon's better overall, as he clicks Shadow Ball, and I live. That is a really big live. If I would have died there, that could have been the game depending on how he played this Mr. Rime, but fortunately I do live, and I click Powerball, and because I'm in Blaze range, I just killed this freaking fish. Damn, Cinderace is strong, man. Barraskewda goes down. At this point, it's looking really good because his only way to break through Rotom is Mr. Rime. And that's why I felt like he needed to keep that thing. But surviving was really nice. This Braviary is Scarf, but that's fine. Mr. Rime and Braviary both are weak to rock, so at this point I can go out to Espeon. I'm going to click Shadow Ball. Even if he wants to switch out, that means both of these mons have to take another round of rocks. I can switch out on the Rotom. and then psychically clean up the game from there. So at this point, the game is basically over. You're going to see here, I am going to actually stay in with my Espeon, just in case I switch down Rotom and he like crit me twice for whatever reason. That would have been really bad. I don't mind losing the differential point just to not risk, the whole game. Even then, I could have probably switched down the Rotom and then, lived the facade as you saw, so I don't know. Anyway, we are going to win this game. You guys are going to see we live this facade with a lot of comfort, and we're just going to Volt Switch our way to victory. And your Northside Noiverns are going to win this game 1-0. So GG to my opponent Bloodcrawler. As you guys can tell, we've played a pretty offensive game overall. The duration of this battle is going to be relatively short compared to the other portions of this video, but hey, that's usually how it is anyway. I do feel like I played alright overall. I wish I would have been able to get a T-Spike up in this battle, but you can't get everything you want, and I still feel like I played well, and it wasn't a big deal in the end. So again, GG to my opponent Bloodcrawler. We are going to move up to a 6-1 record with a +8 differential. Still not the greatest differential for my record, but hey, we'll take the record anyway. And then the GOAT Crusaders are 27-8 in the Sword Division. I said every week, we kick ass in this league, and we're just continuing the trend into this week. We're doing very good overall. Next week, we are switching over to post-home moves. I should have mentioned this at the beginning of the video, but I forgot. Some of the older Gen Mons on my team are getting buffed in the fact that they're getting some moves back. Rotom's getting Pain Split and Toxic back. Espeon gets Hidden Power. Silvally gets Tailwind and Flame Charge. All that good stuff. I can start to use that next week. Same with my opponents. They could all use their post-home moves as well. It's going to be a little bit of a different meta, and hopefully we can adapt. It's not that different because our teams are still the same and all. It's just some certain moves are allowed now. That is going to be next week, and also next week we face off against Potato Jim, which I love that username. It's one of my favorites. But he has a rain team, and he's got some friends along with it, and that's going to be next week's video. But that is it for this week's video. Thank you guys for watching so much. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like. If you like Pokemon Draft League content, consider subscribing to the channel. I'm headed out of here. Have a fantastic day, YouTube.